Welcome to this episode of the Soul of Travel podcast. I am so happy today to be sitting down with Dayana Brooke, and she is joining us in the early hours of her morning from Australia. So I'm also really grateful for that sacrifice to be here. So welcome, Dayana. I'm happy you're here.
Thank you. Yes, it's quite early. I'm an early riser, but I did get up a little bit earlier for this. So thank you. I really am and looking forward to it.
And I'm really excited. We had the privilege of connecting a few weeks ago after kind of finding each other on LinkedIn, and Dayana shared her story of her path in the tourism industry and how that led her to being a sustainable travel advocate. And it was something that really resonated with me. And so I reached out to her to ask if she would share this journey on Soul of Travel as kind of a inspiration and perhaps a guide for other businesses and travelers who are kind of navigating that during this time. I feel like a lot of people are looking towards sustainable travel as a way to meet the needs that we're seeing in the industry. So I'm really excited to bring that to this conversation. I know to just share a little bit of your background, you worked in the tourism industry for about 2 decades, and you were booking family trips, corporate travel, groups. And then when we spoke, you mentioned that in around 2016, you just kind of had this nagging feeling that had been sitting with you, and just really realized that your travel company was contributing to this climate crisis, and decided that you needed to really direct yourself towards this path of becoming a sustainable traveler after 20 years in the industry. And I think that's really so exciting for people listening, because I think maybe sometimes we think we can't change if we've been in this path for so long. So we're going to definitely explore how you did create that shift. But would you begin just by sharing a little bit about your path in the tourism industry, and then how that has led you to where you are today?
Yeah, certainly. You really summed that up well. So basically, I found myself in the travel and tourism industry almost 20 years ago. It's a passion that I've always had, and it actually came about as a child. So I just remember being born in Australia. My parents are from Chile in South America, and we every few years, our summer holidays were spent in Chile. And Chile is one of those geologically blessed countries that it just has every kind of geographical feature you can imagine. And I was just in love. I was in love with this country, all the volcanoes and the wilderness and the landscape and everything. And so that over time that led to sort of an increased, I guess, awareness of the environment and of nature from a really, really early age. And I ended up pursuing a bachelor degree, a degree, I should say, in geosciences. But then I ended up finding myself in the travel and tourism industry. I just had this passion for traveling, exploring, adventures, and I ended up, finding my sort of path in the travel industry over 20 years ago. And like you said, I booked travel for corporates and musicians and entertainers and all sorts of different people. But I found that as my life was sort of becoming more aware of nature and the climate, I was leading a much more plant-based life. I was minimizing my own, things in my life, and I was just at odds with my business, which was literally directly contributing to the climate change and the climate crisis that we're facing. So I literally made a pivot in my business. I literally did 180, stopped what I was doing and turned towards making it more sustainable. And the biggest part of that journey was having that courage and that confidence to go, actually, I can make a difference. And I will start asking, my travel industry suppliers, what is their hotel doing, about the environment? What is that tour experience doing for the environment? So it was having that confidence really that was very difficult in the beginning. And I think that's what a lot of people may struggle with, is realizing that you can make that difference. You just got to, you've got to believe in it, and you've got to make those first steps. And that's those first steps have now led to 6 years of having a travel company that advocates for sustainability. I do that as well. Everything I share is about showing people how they can make little changes to big changes, and everything adds up and everything makes a difference. So yeah, it ended up being, for me, I'm always saying I'm really grateful that, I have a lifestyle and a business that's very much aligned with my values. And I try and do that, every day. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that is really, I find it to be really fulfilling about this segment of the tourism industry, is it seems like it really allows for that alignment, and it also allows for being immersed in a culture of people who are having that same conversation, which I think is really rich and valuable and not seen in a lot of other parts of the industry or in other industries in general. And I just am grateful for that all of the time, to be able to sit down with someone like yourself and just kind of dive into these
Mm,
topics that might normally be overwhelming or too personal, or we separate our personal journey from our professional journey.
mm.
I just love that this gets to be a space where all of those things are important. And I know for you, and we also had talked about this when we initially connected, but part of that, and speaking of like this personal and professional, stepping into the role of a parent is often something, I think, especially for women, that like shifts that perspective, or maybe starts like raising some of those flags of awareness of like, are we fully living this life that we want for ourselves and for our children? So I was just wondering if maybe you could walk us through some of like what that meant for you, and how that plays out in your business and your values.
Yeah, certainly. So for me, my children again was another moment where it just sort of amplified even more the need to do things better. I realized, very early on, firstly, children come with a lot of things. You're expected to, get all this stuff, I should say, or things, or whatever you like. And then you soon realize that you don't actually need all those things. And, but there's a lot of waste as well that comes with those initial first years. And, but then after looking at, I guess, at that, and then realizing that, that's when it sort of really started to hit me that my children, our children, everyone's children are literally inheriting a future that, we impact every day. And so I was very much aware that I wanted to do everything I can to ensure that, they inherit a planet that's still livable. It still has all these amazing, beautiful wildlife, animals that we were fortunate to grow up with, and they still live on the planet, in as much wild spaces as possible. And so seeing that seeing that the climate is changing, and we've got oceans constantly being polluted, and lots of plastic use, it made it even more aware that we really, really need to stop what we're doing and really look at doing things differently. And like I was saying before, for me, I've always embraced travel and what travel does in terms of your perspectives in life and on the planet, and also being aware of other people and their cultures and how they live. And so I wanted to also realize and also have those experiences with my children, because I know how impactful they are. I know how much they stay with you for the rest of your life. And so, wanting to share that with them as well. So that's why travel and tourism is so important. It has that ability to connect with people. So initially I may have looked at it from an environmental perspective to start with, but then as you look more into what sustainable travel is, it's more than just that. It's connecting with other people. It's also ensuring that you can help support their livelihoods and their communities. And I just wanted to share that as well, with my children, ensure that that was still there. But definitely, my children do inspire me. I don't often talk about them, but they do inspire me all the time. And I'm so grateful for that. I bring them along on this journey as well. They're very aware of what I do and what this means, and how they can be a part of it as well, because they love sharing their experiences, in a class news update or with their friends and things like that. So, look, it's one of those interesting things that, when I was working in corporate travel, there was quite this stigma about being a parent, especially about being a mother. So I was always sort of mindful about not sharing too much about that. But to be honest, it is a real big part of me, being a parent, and what I do and why I do it. So yeah, it's really insightful, and it's also, they're dependent on us to do the right thing. And I think you can see that as well with all the student strike movements, that they're now aware, hang on a sec, adults, why are you not doing anything about this? And they have their rights to say that, because we really need to be doing more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it has added such like an even deeper meaning to my own personal travels, and then also in what I want to create, because it becomes it shifts that lens from it being about this kind of personal experience into this more widespread, which then also brings in the layers of sustainability and impact. And it just
Mm.
kind of, I feel like it just unfolds. And so I think it's been really important in my journey as well. And the conversations that I'm able to have with my children, and their worldview is so different from
Yes.
mine, which I think is just amazing and provides
Yes.
me with like so much optimism for what that can mean. And like you, I love traveling with them, and like allowing them to see things, but I also love experiencing through them. And
Yeah.
we'll be on a hike, and I remember one time they were really little, and I took them on this hike, and we were just on this trail that went out of a parking lot on the edge of like a campground. It wasn't anything like super spectacular by any means, but we were hiking, and my daughter was like, one of them was like, look at the light coming through the leaves.
Yeah.
Can you believe the magic? Look at these flowers. Look at the
Yeah.
blue sky. Like everything was like intoxicating to them.
Yeah.
And I was like simultaneously thinking, like, anybody who's listening probably thinks I never let my children out of our home because everything is so amazing. And like,
Yeah.
also I was like, wow, it is magical. Like,
Mm.
look at how the light is on those leaves, and look at those flowers. And like really, that was kind of a moment when I was thinking, like, when I'm traveling, am I being mindful? Am I being present? Am I really like being immersed in a
Yeah.
space and appreciating everything that it had to offer? And really started
Yeah.
to kind of bring that into my practice of travel, which then again like reconnected me to sustainability and thinking about how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. So
Mm.
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
There's a
a great
real
lens.
innocence there with children, and it's so beautiful because they do see things differently in an sort of unbiased way as well. And you said in the beginning, may have not been too sort of spectacular for you because that's your perspective now as you've grown, but for them it's like, wow, this is wonderful, and it gives you that chance to look at that again in a different way, and you think, yeah, wow, that is. But it makes you very mindful about, where you go, and who you speak with, and how you get there as well. That's also important. But they do see things from a different, imaginative, creative way as well, which, you lose, unfortunately, as you get older. But children have it, and it's just such a beautiful thing to see and nurture and witness. So yeah, that's really, really a lovely story. Yeah.
Thank you. And I would love to talk about, now kind of move into talking about that transition in your business, and just kind of, I think for both of us, we looked at the beginning of our sustainability journey as how we can make small changes that that really create a large impact. And um, I like to have conversations that allow travelers and businesses to kind of enter where they are. So not assuming that we all have to become sustainability advocates, or that we don't all have all the answers at the beginning. Like, this is a journey that we have to work through. And we also know that travelers are really starting to ask for and search for healthier travel options, like options that are more environmentally friendly. And I'm just wondering if you can share a little bit about how you help travelers find that, and how you help businesses begin this journey.
Yeah, look, it's certainly a journey. And I've been at the very beginning of that journey. Like the moment I asked my very first supplier in the travel industry, what is this resort doing for the environment? That was the very first question like I asked, and I just knew I had to learn more once I got that response. And it wasn't just the response, it was their reaction. They had the biggest smile on their face that was like, wow, finally someone is asking us a question we want to talk about. So that was a big step, well, a big sort of validation for me that I was on this right path for me. And it's been an absolute journey of learning. I didn't have all the answers to start with, believe me, I didn't, but I just knew I had to start somewhere, and we've all got to start somewhere. And so the last 6 years has been a journey of just asking and reading and just continually just kind of learning as much as I can. And I've always said that it's not about knowing all the answers. It's certainly not about being perfect. My goodness, it isn't. But just start with the little things and go from there. And so for me, the first step was asking that question. And I remember practicing it. I was like, I'm going to ask. I was at an international travel event, and I was on the second day of a 3-day travel event where you have those interviews or meetings with each supplier for like 10 minutes, and you move to the next and that sort of thing. And I just remember saying, right now I'm going to ask. And so it took a lot of courage to make. It might sound a bit silly now, but it's when you're not used to saying something, it does kind of, it can be a bit frightening, and you don't say it. So it took a lot of courage to just say, what is your resort doing for the environment? And it just went from there. And so what I did was, to start with, really simple, is I actually looked at my business in terms of paperwork. Very simple. So my office, my use of paper. And back then, everything was being printed. So whenever you put together an itinerary for someone, you booked airline tickets, everything was printed. You ended up with like a folio of paper sometimes. And so that was the very first thing I did, was literally stop printing. And I haven't printed since. And I slowly transitioned all the clients and their itineraries onto cloud software. So they were all downloading an app. And this was at a time when there was just a few apps at the time, but not many people were using them. So that was one of the first things that was done. And there were some clients who were a little bit hesitant. So they may have got something that they printed, but from my end, there was no more printing. And I also stopped using those travel wallets. Again, something that you would often get when you would book a trip with a travel advisor. So those were the very first things I did. And I started to share with my clients at the time why I was doing this, and sort of, getting them on this journey as well of, looking at reducing the paper use. And for me at the time, that was one of my first sort of things to do. One of your quick wins, as people like to say. Look at the things that you can do. And when you feel good about it, you like go, okay, I did that. That was good. Okay, what else can I do? And that's how you start building that sort of momentum to look further into what other changes you can make. And so for me, I've come to realize that everyone's at a different point in the journey, and that's completely fine. And so I actually ended up realizing that I created some sort of framework, if you want to call it, and I call it the dip, immerse, and the dive. And the idea of that is to meet people along the way. So if you just want to be a traveler who just wants to try a little bit of something, maybe a couple of nights at an eco hotel, or maybe, try a city tour on a bike, that's a small little thing that you can do. So that's kind of where you could start. And then you may have a client or a traveler who is going, okay, I'd like to try a little bit, maybe do a week of my 2-week holiday somewhere and see what we can do in that week. So that's a client who's willing to try a little bit more. And then you may have a client or a traveler who's like, okay, let's just do this whole thing as environmentally friendly as possible. And so meeting that client, or if you're a traveler, there are experiences, there are ways you can add to your travel experience where you want to be. The idea is just to do something. I always say something is better than nothing, and they all add up to positive things. And the same sort of methodology, I guess, or thinking applies when I am speaking with other businesses. And at the moment, as I no longer book travel myself, I still am the founder and director of my own company, which offers sustainable travel experiences. I'm no longer booking those anymore. So what I'm doing now is I've turned my attention to helping other travel businesses, and also looking at hopefully helping regions as well, communities as well, and getting them on the journey of sustainability. But I'm also hopefully very soon will be looking at sharing knowledge with other travel advisors. So the more travel advisors who can feel empowered to have conversations with their own clients about sustainability, the more we can get more travelers thinking and traveling this way. So there's a real sort of I guess for me, I'm at a point now where I want to be sharing knowledge with as many people as possible, and I'm really excited about that. I think we have such an opportunity to do that, and like you were saying before, there is such a need now. There is such a want. And so travelers are looking for this. This is what they're seeking. This is what they're searching. The travel industry needs to meet that. And start recognizing that they need to do more. And if they're not, that's fine. We can get started. That's, and if they are doing more, make sure that they're sharing that in a very open way with travelers as well. And yeah, I mean, there was something else I was going to say now, I can't remember, but if I can touch on something else, let me know. But look, there's just so much that can be done, and this is where travel industry is going. It needs to go this way. This is where the world is heading anyway as well, and other industries are. So, and yeah, I think
I think that it's really interesting to think about like simply, like you said, just asking that first question, and really how awkward it feels. I mean, I kind of remember having a similar situation of asking, telling someone that I didn't want to have any single-use plastics on a trip, and how could they meet that need. And it was kind of a little bit
yes.
terrifying, and
Yes.
again, like, it's not this huge ask, but it's uncomfortable the first time because you don't know what kind of response you're going to get. And then, I also fortunately was met with like this enthusiasm and like excitement for this challenge and thinking about this. And then also like sparked in them to say, hey, I also know this restaurant locally that does this thing, and this hotel, and they have this great initiative. And if you're interested in learning more about this, I'm going to look for more things. And so like pretty immediately there was this ripple effect. And so I think that's exciting to see. And then also for me, when I was studying for my master's in sustainable destination management, like I felt like the conversations were kind of under the surface with consumers, right? Like you could have a sustainable travel product, but like don't lead with that. Like just tell them you have this great trip, and then kind of like sneak the sustainability underneath and let them know about it later or something, but don't don't let like that's not the stage you're building your trip upon. And
Yes.
I really am excited to see that it feels like that can be the stage now, like that can be the value that you're offering and not just this side you know th-
Yeah.
I don't know, this lace on the pillow or something.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that sort of still happens. There are some people that, well, some tour experiences, I guess, who don't lead with their sustainability initiatives. And I mean, the idea is to go, okay, we want you to come and experience this. You enjoy it, and then we go, okay, that was something that's very much a sustainable experience. And you're like, oh, okay, that was great. So that kind of meets the people that who may not necessarily be looking for this, but experience it anyway and realize actually it wasn't too bad. It was really fun, enjoyable, and it meant a lot. And so there's that as well. So I think there is still space for that. But I think we need to be more open and transparent about what we're doing. This is what consumers are looking for. And I think that breaks down that barrier of confusion, which is a big barrier. And that's where there's a lot of confusion, that it's expensive, that it's going to be inconvenient, that, you're going to turn into some greenie, like it's just all these different things. And I think if we can be more transparent about that, and like you said, lead that sort of up front, then we can just kind of move forward. And that's one of the things that I do, is I try and be as open and transparent about things. And when it comes to sustainability and travel, the biggest challenge we're facing is the aviation. And I'm open about talking about that, because it's one of those trade-offs. You've got to get on a plane most of the time to get somewhere, and for us here in Australia, it's basically our only means to get to Europe, to get to the States, to get to family and friends overseas. And it's something that we need to address, and we need to include in the discussions as we talk about sustainability and travel and tourism moving forward, because it's a means of transport. I mean, there are ways to minimize the use of a plane if possible. Packing light is another one, going as direct as possible as you can. If you can avoid a shorter flight, drive or train. There's just so many little things that you can talk about. But yeah, being open and transparent is important, and it'll avoid confusion. Yeah.
And I think it's also, I mean, I think it's great that in this time in the industry that storytelling and transparency are all kind of things that businesses are working to integrate into, how they connect with travelers. And so it does give us space to say, again, like where in the past we might not have said, here you could take this flight, but we can reduce our carbon emissions by choosing to fly here. And like you said, and then we're going to go ahead and bus here or train
Mm-hmm.
here, or like there's just all these different pieces. And then this educates the traveler who maybe didn't think about that before. I mean, the first time you hear about it, that's the first time that to ask about it the next time. And so when we
Yeah.
share these, maybe that might have been like behind the scenes planning tips or strategies, when we just share those, that is also creating conversation. And again, I think that travelers and businesses are getting more comfortable with those conversations, and
Yeah.
like thinking about how we can reframe these things. And like you said, with the e-bike, maybe people just wouldn't have thought about that as
Mm.
something that's a sustainable action, right? Like they just, maybe it's fun or a unique experience. But when you just give them that language, then they are thinking, the next
Mm.
place they go to, oh, that was fun and easy and had a positive environmental impact. Like
Exactly.
I
Yes.
can do that next time. And like you said, then you like, what's the next thing I might be
What's the
able to
next thing?
do?
What
And
else can I do better?
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
so
that's
I think
it.
it gets everybody comfortable in this space.
Yeah, exactly. And there's going to be some new things now that you will be open to trying. Now that if you start thinking this way, you'll go, okay, you don't need to jump on the plane, or you could look at something else. And so, yeah, it's exciting. I think people should see that as something exciting, especially if you've been a traveler for some time. This is some new things that you could consider doing. And when it comes to bike touring, I think that's really interesting because there's some companies out there who will cater for all levels of cyclists. So you might not even be a bike rider, but you can jump on an e-bike. It's great. It really is. So it's very inclusive as well. And what I'm sort of really excited to see as well is, more accessibility as well. So I think like nature trails as well, being more mindful about making sure that their trails are accessible by everybody as well, which is really good. So there's a real awareness now of travel and tourism being more accessible to everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I always kind of put this into a bucket of conscious travel. So much like you're saying, like it's about sustainability, but it's also about inclusivity, and it's also about, you know, all these different pieces. And it's beginning to just look at how everything is interconnected. And it seems like
Correct. Yes.
once you just kind
Yes.
of pick up and look underneath this rock, and then you're like, oh wait, now this one, and you like look under the next rock, and all of a sudden you're uncovering all these
Yes.
things, and it's magical, and I know can be daunting, right? Because you're like, oh wait,
Yes.
I just wanted to look at carbon offsetting, and now I'm also looking at DEI, and now I'm also looking at this, and can become overwhelming. And so I think this, like you were saying, kind of this slow entry, or
Start slow.
like
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
okay to just say, wait, I'm going to just peg that for right now and know
Yeah.
it's where I want to go, but I don't have to be there today.
Yeah.
And
It
again,
can
as a
be
traveler
very
and a
small.
business.
Yeah, very small steps. I mean, for some of my clients, when I was booking travel, it'd be something as simple as taking a Tesla transfer to the airport. Like it was just those small little things. So yeah, you can add something to an itinerary or a travel experience. Small, little things, more things, or the whole experience. But the idea is to try and do something every time you can. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know we both believe that travel is really a privilege, and it is our responsibility as travelers to do this. And so
Yes.
I think that it's just so important to give people the tools and the resources that they can use in order to take these steps. I know one thing we've talked about is ways to get involved. And one of those is travel pledges, traveler pledges. There's so many right now that are
Mhm.
happening. Would you like to talk a little bit about that? Maybe that's one small step in this journey.
Yeah, that was actually on my mind a few minutes ago, when you were saying how the businesses can get started, and one of them is making a pledge or a declaration as a business that you are looking into. Sorry, excuse me. That you are becoming more aware, well, more mindful, and you just want to be a bit more open about what your company is hoping to do, what your tour experiences are hoping to do. So, a pledge or a declaration is a really good start. Um, don't feel like you are sort of putting something out there that you may not sort of. I'm trying to refer back to a conversation I had where they felt that by doing some sort of declaration, it didn't have sort of any weight behind it. They may be sending the wrong message. And I actually said, well, no, I don't feel like you are. I think by putting out a declaration or some sort of pledge, you're showing that, you are making that first step. You don't have all the answers, and it's not about having all the answers. We really need to get started on just making that first step. And I really do encourage businesses and travelers as well, if they want to make their own pledge. But you'll find that quite a few countries have a pledge now. Iceland is one of them. New Zealand is another. Palau was the very first one that had a pledge for tourism to sign upon arriving into that country, and just to be mindful of their impact while they're there. And then if you were in that country, to be mindful of and respectful of cultures, and to leave that small footprint, basically. So, I really think it's a great great thing to do, a small thing to do. You don't need to know all the answers. You don't need to make it perfect or have 10 steps or something. Just simply saying, look, we want to do more. We want our business to do more, and we want to share this journey with you. I think that's another great thing that businesses can do, and you'll find that travelers will want to support you if they know that you're a company that are looking to do better. You'll find that your travelers and your customers will support you as well in that journey. It's a journey, and again, I'll say we don't have to be all perfect with it. Like I said, in my very first steps, I was like, I had that nagging feeling I had to do something. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I had to do something. And it's been a journey ever since. So yeah, just a declaration and a pledge is great. And that's what I've done in my company as well. I have put in, and it's a continually evolving thing as well. Like, don't feel like you've done something a couple of years ago and you just kind of leave it there. Always look at it, use it as your benchmark, use it as a way of measuring what you've done and go, okay, we've done that. What else can we do? And we keep going back to what we said before. How can we do things better? And it builds that momentum. It really does. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think establish as a business, or as a traveler, I guess, establishing that benchmark and understanding like who you are as a traveler, as a business now, then you have a way to measure that impact if it's important to you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just environmental and nature. It's also, it could be a cultural impact. You may want to support a community. You may want to support a local school or help support some tourism enterprises. Or it could be you want to support, you know, um, I think I said communities. I'm very focused on communities. But yeah, it's not just an environmental aspect. So for sustainability, the three main principles of it is the environmental aspect. It's also the economic aspects of the prosperity, ensuring that you can support livelihoods in the communities, and it's also the cultural aspect as well. So if you find that you've got a passion for sort of the ocean and you want to help reduce the plastic in the ocean, that's a great one. If you want to support the education of children in a small community, that's something that you could do as well. There's different aspects. It could be conservation, it could be saving the pangolins or something. Find what your agency is as well, and you can align that. If you've got a passion of your own, align that with your travel experiences or the tour company that you have, and then you'll find that you'll start to align your values with your business, and you'll build some positive momentum from that as well.
Yeah, I love that. And again, it's kind of inviting you to narrow it down and not think
Yeah,
that you need to do all the things, but you can really be
correct.
like, what am I passionate about? Then you're going to be dedicated to that. And if it is oceans because you're a surfer or a swimmer
Correct.
or a boater,
Yes.
like that's
Yes.
something you can stick to. But if you
Mm-hmm.
choose to then go a different direction, you're probably not going to stay there. And so I
Mm.
think that is so great. And there's so many travel programs and travel businesses as well that, like, if you are really interested in conserving like artisan crafts, like you
Mm-hmm.
can find a way that you do that through your travels. If you are
Yeah.
really interested in language, preservation, or if you're interested in, I mean, it's endless. I think that's
You're
such a great
saying
way of to
everything.
just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
is to just
Everything you're
say,
saying is spot on. Yeah, that's
yeah,
exactly it. And finding that agency, which is finding your purpose as well. And if you can align that with your business, I mean, you can take it a little bit further as well if you want to align it with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is another one. Align it with another not-for-profit. Align it with another alliance, who are doing, reducing plastics in the ocean and things like that. You can do that as well. But yeah, there's lots of not-for-profits organizations out there doing some great things. You can align with them. Yeah,
yeah, the UN
really
sustainable
good.
sustainable development goals, I think, are a great place to get curious and also like figure out what questions to even ask, or maybe if you don't know what your values driven travel might look like, you can just look at those goals and say like, oh, I didn't realize I'm very interested in gender equality, but I didn't know I could tie that into my travels.
Yeah.
Then that could be my impact. And so, again, like it's kind of like we said, like it's more about asking these questions, getting curious. How can I put that into action? And I think then it becomes so much more personally rewarding and fulfilling
Mm,
as both a brand and a traveler,
definitely.
because you're doing
Yes.
this thing that really, really means
Yeah.
something to you.
And yeah, and getting curious is really important because that's one of my my values as well, is that curiosity and the love of learning. So combined, I'm constantly, you know, looking at new things and curious about asking those questions and things. Um, but yeah, I was going to say, sorry, I've lost what I was going to say again. Maybe I'm just waking up. Sorry.
That's okay. That's what happens when I invite you on a call at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
I
yeah, and
appreciate
I'm
it.
just so grateful to hear you speak the way you do as well, because everything you're saying is, yeah, it's true. It's just having those curiosities and then inviting other people to have those conversations with you, and you start realizing there's a different side of you as well, and you start opening up more of an awareness. It's really exciting. Yeah, you can embrace
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I love it because I think a lot about how travel allows us to open those doors and uncover those parts of ourselves. But
Mm,
even if you look at it in this context, just preparing to travel is actually going to create some of that internal dialogue and
mm.
discovery. And so I think that's really exciting to look at how expansive the aspect of travel can be in your own personal growth. And again, like we were saying earlier, it starts maybe with self, but then it's going to ripple out. It's not going to stay with you as this like personal centric focus. It's going to
Yeah,
become more holistic. I did want to make
yeah.
sure that we had time to share. You mentioned both that during this pandemic, you have really focused, or you didn't mention, but I wanted to mention that during the pandemic, you have focused on your master's in sustainability, and you have recently started some new projects. And I wanted our listeners to be able to share in that with you. So if you would just share what you are getting started on and kind of this fun new parts of your business and your growth as well.
Yeah, certainly. So like all of us in the travel industry, we were pretty much hit hard by the pandemic. So it was a real struggle. And somehow in all of that, I found an opportunity to go back to universities, which I've done this year. So I'm studying a master's of sustainability, and I'm really excited about that. And having some sort of formal education, I guess, behind it. But yeah, that's just opened up a whole nother layer of interest and curiosity and learning. So I'm really looking forward to that and sharing the knowledge that I have with my clients and with travelers and through my business. And from that as well, I guess it's all connected. It's all that ripple effect. You start becoming more aware of what you can do, and you start having those conversations. It's exactly what you just say. You start having conversations with people you probably never would have had otherwise, when you have that intent to follow a different path and a positive sort of with a positive outcome. And I found myself in some new projects, which I'm really excited about. So I'm becoming a mentor for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander tourism startups and enterprises here in Australia. And I'm really looking forward to that, to help them set up tourism experiences, Indigenous experiences. And there's a real call for that here in Australia, and just everywhere as well. And if it can be done in a way in which it needs to benefit everyone. It can be done in a way which is genuine and authentic. It's really heartwarming to do that. So as a mentor, I will be providing them with insights in how to create a tourism experience that a traveler can come and have. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. So that's a new project that's come out of being open to having those conversations with people. So I'm really excited. Yeah.
Congratulations. I love that too. And I mean, for me, one of my I don't know why I can't think of the word. I apologize to our listeners today because apparently we're both like, oh, I just can't think of the words. So
Yeah.
there's too many words, I think is the problem.
We're
But
too passionate about this. That's probably
yeah.
why we're so excited. Yeah.
But when it comes to looking at working with Indigenous communities, for me, when I travel, I mean, that is something that is actually for me as a young child, that is something that piqued my curiosity or got a hold of me. And I couldn't
Mm,
stop thinking about is I wanted to live with every Indigenous community that I ever saw depicted in a movie or a magazine. And I'm like, I want to learn the language. I'm curious about the culture, the dance, the practices, the
mhm.
traditions. And I just thought, for me, I thought, there's something that I'm not doing, and there's something magical within that. And then, like, as I've aged, seeing these cultures becoming less acknowledged and
Mhm.
like losing these traditions, as I started to become a traveler, I wanted to look at the ways. I mean, for me, one of those things was, how can I use travel as a way to preserve cultures and these indigenous identities. And so I'm so excited to hear that that's where you're headed, because I think it is so important. It
Mm.
is definitely something that travel has the power to do. And
Yes.
when you start traveling, you maybe don't, that's not your first assumption of what you could be doing when you're traveling, but I think it's one of these beautiful layers that can be added to it. And so if anybody else is listening and you're like, oh, I have been
Mm.
curious, but I didn't know how to do that,
Yeah.
like, it's
Yeah.
definitely available to you.
You've said everything spot on. For so long, it was not acknowledged, unfortunately. And yeah, I yeah, and there's so much curiosity there to learn and to understand and be respectful of. And so that's what I'm really excited to be working with tourism startups and enterprise, well, tourism startups, I should say, and just helping them, with my knowledge and to see how they can create an experience that can be shared with travelers. Yeah, what you said was beautiful. Sorry, I was lost in your words.
That's okay. Thank
I
you. I
really
usually
am.
am. That's what
Yeah.
happens to me. Um, yeah. And I think also just this idea that we can build upon our interests and passions
Mm,
and grow as a traveler and grow as a global community, and really just embrace that. So I appreciate
yeah.
that that kind of keeps coming back into this conversation, is
Yeah. I
permission for travel to be a journey. Being a traveler in and of itself is a journey. Like,
mhm.
that really there's so many possibilities, and this just can continue to unfold and bring new richness to our lives. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I will look forward to circling back and sharing more of those experiences with you when they become a bit more established. But yeah, when
you.
I was given the opportunity, I just said, yes, please. Like, this is what I'd love to do. So I was really, really grateful for that. And it's all come from having those initial conversations. Yeah. And just being open, yeah, to it. So I'm
Well,
really, really grateful to hear that as well. Yeah, what you're
yeah.
saying, everything, beautiful words. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, as we wind down our conversation, I want to make sure that listeners know where to find you. So if you want to share your website, ways that they can be connected, and then we'll end with a series of rapid fire questions.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to connect with me directly, the best place is to find me on LinkedIn. And then there's also a website under my name, dayanabrooke.com. And then for any of my any sustainable travel inquiries, or if you've got a potential travel experience you want to talk about and be listed on the platform, that's thesustainabletraveler.com.
Thank you. And I just wanted to mention too, for listeners, I'll drop some traveler pledges and links to other things that you've mentioned also in our show notes, so people can
Mm-hmm.
find those on my
That is
website
great.
if they want to learn more. So our rapid fire questions, just an opportunity for people to get to know you a little bit more as a traveler. And it always seems like it just brings something else we can learn about into the conversation. So the first is, what is your favorite book or movie that offers you either a travel escape or inspires you to adventure?
Favorite book or movie? Oh, look, I will have to say anytime I watch David Attenborough, does that count? It's not a
Sure.
movie, but it's a series. Yeah,
Yes.
David Attenborough, he's just brings so much heart and soul, and awareness and curiosity to the planet that we live on. So yeah, that always inspires me to do things better.
What is always in your suitcase or backpack when you travel?
Uh, I probably would say my little mini iPad. I don't carry a laptop. I just use an iPad. Yeah.
What has been your favorite destination?
I'm gonna go back to my roots. I'm gonna say Chile. Chile always, yeah, feels like a second home for me. So yeah.
And where do you still long to visit?
Ah, uh, I'm probably going to say Bhutan.
Me too. Oh my gosh, that place, that seems like a very
if
magical
I if
destination.
I ever find myself there, I'll be eternally grateful. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what do you eat that immediately connects you to a place that you've been?
ah, I would probably say there's a couple there. I'm gonna go with Indian. Yeah. A plant-based. I'm plant-based, so a plant-based curry always reminds me, or a naan bread. Yeah, it reminds me of
Yeah.
India.
And those smells are so lovely.
Yeah, the spices and everything. Yeah, yeah.
Who was the person that inspired or encouraged you to set out and explore?
My dad. I might get emotional here, but yeah, he's quite intrepid himself in his explorations. I've got many stories I could share of my childhood with my dad. So yeah, it's made me quite intrepid. Yeah.
Thank you. And if you could take an adventure with one person, fictional or real, past or alive, who would it be?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Mhm.
One person. Oh, oh, I've got two, and that's my children.
Um,
Does that
yes,
count?
you can.
Okay, yeah, my children. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I can definitely relate to that. I
I
can't.
can't just pick one. No.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that'd be not fair. That'll cause problems forever. Well, I really appreciate so much for you joining me today and talking so honestly about your journey in sustainability and what it means for you and how you hope that impacts others that work with you. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah, let's just all come to realize that we can make a difference, and just start with one single thing. Yeah, that'll be great. That'll be amazing.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much for this opportunity as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.